A tree has lots of roots. If a tree falls down, all its roots come out. And it leaves a very big hole.
Everyone has a family tree. With your family name, you can trace your ancestors back for centuries. Imagine if you didn't know your name.
Deep in the long grass, the sun beating down, racing forever, laughing so loud, and we had no cares of those secrets we shared, and nobody knows the way you and nobody knows the way. Wandering aimlessly through darkened rooms.
I always knew that I was adopted. My mother apparently told me when I was about 4 or 5 years old, although I really don't have any memory of that. They took me home when I was 2 months old from a foster care mother, and at that time, in 1964, no one really explained to them that a baby might have some feelings about being given to another mother, that it would take time to adjust. And maybe the fear that I would be given away again never really left me. I always wanted to know. I wanted to know, probably from the moment I knew I was adopted, I wanted to know where I was from. But that's very much my personality. I want to know everything.
There are 1.6 million children under the age of 18 who are adopted in the U.S.
I always knew that I was adopted, but throughout my childhood I always walked around with unresolved grief, not knowing what it was. But I was always bothered, and it was always in my, unconscious, but I always felt it so close.
I found out when I was 21 years old that I was adopted. It was not the wish of my family that I know that, but I found out from a family friend one day.
I was adopted by a really short Portuguese woman, and I'm 6'5" and I have green eyes, and so we never matched.
I was placed for adoption as soon as I was born, stayed in foster care until I was 8 months old, and then I was adopted by a husband and wife who could not have children.
I was adopted when I was 19 days old. I was very close to my father and not as close to my mother. My mother was both physically ill and mentally ill. She died when I was 12.
I grew up always knowing that I was adopted. I would say I was pretty much one of those born searchers. I think I always wanted to know. I was always very curious.
I think if you're a baby, you don't really know what's going on, and you're very scared, and you're like, where is my mommy? Where's my real mommy?
60% of people in America have a connection to adoption.
He told me quite early on he was adopted.
She told me very early on in our relationship, I'm adopted.
Yeah, when we first started, maybe within a week or two, she just told me.
He said it to me like he was afraid I was going to just say, oh, I don't want anything to do with you.
And the funny thing is somewhere deep down, I had a feeling she was adopted. Because I remember I went to her house, and she was dyeing her hair at the time, and her mom had blonde hair, so I said, okay, they look similar. But then I saw a picture of her brother hanging on the wall, and I realized there was absolutely no resemblance.
I didn't realize how tiring it was. And I remember exactly when I became aware of it. And it was when her birth mother turned to me and said, "How are you doing?" Nobody had ever asked. I never even stopped to think about it. And I was really taken off guard.
Like most people, I figured that the child is too young to remember anything. And so you grow up and You adapt and become part of wherever you end up. And that's about as much thought about the subject that I ever gave.
When people say, why do you want to know? It's very hard to move forward with one's life, I felt, when you don't have a beginning. It's almost impossible. People don't think about it as a loss.
You know, to me, I guess at that time, adoption was just somebody else raised a kid. I didn't know there was emotions in it. I didn't know there was feelings on either side, a parent or a child.
I had no idea of the level of loss. I had no idea about what a profound change that could make in somebody's life.
I guess I could never feel what he feels about the loss of a bloodline.
I had no idea the pull towards, I need to know where I came from. I knew where I came from.
I mean, I've had my parents all my life. I've had my parents, I've had my siblings.
So, well, what's the big deal? You came from where you came from. But there is a big deal.
You needed to know. Everybody else in life, and anybody around him had something to compare him to. And he didn't. And I knew that was missing.
One day I woke up and I told my wife that I was ready to search.
He said, okay, we're going here, we're doing this, we're doing that, and we just do it. You know, we took a day off, we got on a train and went to the library to look for his name. No questions. He wanted to do it, I did it. I wanted to help him in any way I could. The search wasn't the bad part.
I hired a private investigator on a Monday. He found her on Wednesday. I talked to her on Saturday, met her face-to-face on Sunday, all of that week, which was an emotional high. But every high comes with a low,
Right.
which I will be totally honest with, that I was nowhere ready for.
And so I began to search for my birth mother. And I never told my adopted parents. It was a very powerful experience.
I'm walking down the street, the one she walked before, 20 years ago. I see just what she saw, and I wonder as I walk, does she think of me today? Does she feel me in her heart? Or did I just fade away? 'Cause I'm following the path.
I found her in a relatively short period of time, but I remember when I received her name. The impact of receiving a name, I couldn't believe that the woman had a name. It meant she was real. It meant that I really, really was adopted. I hadn't really fantasized this. I really did come from another woman, and she had a name. She was a person.
Then she, sat us down and she said, well, this is your first name. And she told me my name. And I was like, I had no words. I mean, I was 32, 33 years old, and it was the first time I had heard a name. I think I just sat there, I was probably in shock. But I remember leaving there saying, wow, I have a name.
I asked my parents for any adoption information on my birth family, and I sent away for that, and I got back a 2-page report that blew me away. I cried and cried. It made the adoption real.
It made the story seem real, like, wow, I did come from here. I couldn't use my, childhood as an excuse or an hindrance, so I really needed to know what it was all about.
I didn't know when I met my birth mother that she was going to have issues. I mean, I was 24. I was a couple of years sober. I was very immature still, dealing with all my stuff. Meeting her, I don't really know what I expected. I just wanted to know where I was from. But obviously there's an expectation, and I think it is, well, she's my mother. She's going to accept me for me. She will love me the way a mother loves a child, which is unconditionally. And that was not the case, because she had her issues. She had her pain. And here was I walking in, this adult woman, as a reminder to her of all her pain, all her anger towards my birth father, her anger towards her parents that didn't support her. I represented everything, and I had no clue at all, because nobody had told me.
I went into reunion thinking I was going to find my biological family to tell them that I was okay. What I found out was that's not what I needed to do. I needed to find my biological family because I needed them. And to need something at 34 when you thought you had the house, the kids, the perfect world wasn't that perfect for me. There was a lot missing for me that I was unprepared for.
I never went into this thing expecting a mommy-daughter relationship. I already had that.
The connection that I saw with my brother and sister with their mother, or our mother, but I still think it's their mother, is I was never going to have that because I was an adult. It made me feel more connected to my adopted family in time, not to begin with. To begin with, I didn't feel connected to either. I was like, well, who am I? Where do I fit with these two families? But in time, it began to, I could appreciate my connection with my adoptive family and know that my adoptive mother loved me as a mother. She loved me unconditionally. But I just didn't connect with her the way a natural baby would have connected with her.
I always knew the city where I was born, but now I knew the hospital name, the time I was born, my birth mother's first name, her height, that she had family. Because in my head, I knew there was a birth mother missing, but I never thought about extended family members.
I know there are people out there that are related to me, and I can't find them. And it's very hard.
So when I was in elementary school, as many elementary school teachers did, we had an exercise where they said, please, they gave us a piece of paper and a drawing of a tree, and they said, please fill in your family tree. So all the other children started writing frantically, and I burst out into tears, and the teacher came to me and said, what is the matter? And I said, I don't have a family tree, I'm adopted. My mother did console me, and she showed me hers, and said, this is your family tree. And I said, that's nice, that's your tree. That's not my tree. I had to find my tree later on.
As babies, we didn't have words to say what it felt like when we were separated, but within ourselves, the memory is retained. The feeling of panic when you're taken from your mother, when you don't know where did she go. I'm just given to a stranger, and I'm supposed to feel okay about that.
I started searching before I got married, and then it got very intense and I stopped. And once I had my first daughter, immediately it was a compulsion to search. I had to know, because I would just look at her and just wonder how could it be that a mother could actually separate from her baby.
Because I just always thought, how could someone give up a baby?
Me and my twin sister are 2 of 6 children that my birth mother relinquished, and we're looking for one more sister.
And I know that she suffered after she gave me up. Like, she just didn't give me up and keep going.
Well, I think I just have more understanding of where each mother came from. And and maybe that's part of just growing older, but I really can feel compassion, which I never felt before. I just felt complete rage towards both of them. But I have to say that I can feel compassion as a woman, as a mother, of what both my mothers have gone through.
I don't think she did not realize until she got a daughter how significant the lineage is.
I don't think I personally grieved. I think I grieved for her, for not having that.
I found out I was half Italian. I found out that my birth father was from Italy. Now, I had never ever thought about my birth father. It sounds ridiculous, but as a child I only thought about the mother. And then when I began my search, I thought, oh my God, there has to be a man involved, unless I was the Immaculate Conception. But I doubted I was because I was so bad.
Before she searched, I always knew it was, I guess, a void, an emptiness, definitely a lot of sadness. And to be able to observe and go through the whole reunion part was like watching somebody heal.
The least understood aspect of adoption, I feel, is that people think it's over when you're a child. They think of adoptees as children, but we grow up.
I really think the least understood piece is the fact that even though we were separated from our birth parents it may have been separated at a day or 3 days or 3 weeks or 2 weeks, that person is so incredibly, that person is very important to us, just as we were very important in that person's life. And I think it's too easy for people to kind of assume that, well, we don't remember much until we were 2 or 3 years old, so how can what you don't remember hurt so much? And it's very hard to articulate an answer to that. It's just a loss.
I knew when we got married that I wanted to start a family. I knew that. I had wanted children since I was 4. I got pregnant the first time I tried to get pregnant, and I felt tremendous joy and tremendous guilt. I got pregnant, and my adoptive mother could not get pregnant.
I didn't feel guilty about getting pregnant. I felt very sad that she couldn't. I felt her loss is really, it was sad. It was a mixed, I'm excited for me, but I became very in touch with her sadness.
When I was a teenager, I remember, sitting at slumber parties, and we always talked about sex and other stuff that was so, we couldn't talk about in school. And I remember thinking, well, I'll never have children. I never had a mother who had children.
I actually thought that I would not be able to get pregnant. I had always sort of carried within myself that I was infertile, that I wouldn't be able to have a baby. And when I got pregnant, I was so shocked, because it happened literally the first time, that I bought about 3 pregnancy tests. Then I had a blood test, and then I did another pregnancy test. And I remember the doctor saying to me, Zara, the home pregnancy tests are really good. You really don't need a blood test. No, I need a blood test. And then 2 days later, I did another pregnancy test just to make sure that I was still pregnant. We spent so much money on pregnancy tests.
Actually, when I first touched my baby's hand, and the shock wave that went through me of that connection and the DNA I was acutely aware of that. And I wasn't aware that I was going to feel like that at all. And it was so strong, it was like a tidal wave that comes over you, and I had never had that, obviously, before. And when I first touched my daughter's hand, and it was very powerful, to say the least.
Father, I wonder about the life that you led. I think about all of the words I want to say to you. Do you feel it too?
How do I look? How do I look?
You look great.
Good. Yay. The weird thing about when you're adopted is you don't actually know how you look, because you don't look like anyone you grow up with. So when you see people that look alike, you think it's really weird and freaky.
At airports, you always see families reuniting. And I would see family resemblances, and I think, isn't that interesting? If I see 2 women together and it's obvious they're either sisters or mother and daughter, I just go, wow, they look alike. And when somebody tells me that you and Linnea look a lot alike, I can't believe that, you know, because we see each other externally and we have no idea what we look like.
There's so much like my husband and he's so much like her that at times it's a little creepy. You know?
I remember seeing my children in the swimming pool and they were all together and I said to my husband, look, look. He's like, what? I said, look at them, they look alike. He said, yeah, that's normal. They're related to each other.
I always felt like I could be anybody's child. I could be anybody's sister or brother. So I think the combination of being an extrovert and not knowing to whom I was related genetically made me open to think I could be related to anybody. And I wasn't thinking that as a child, but as an adult in my 30s and 40s and etc., I've thought about that a lot.
But every time I meet a man of that age range, I'm always looking at their features thinking, I wonder if my father has those lips or that skin or those eyes. And it's always nice for me to now say, you know, I'm Italian. I didn't go into my whole story. So stuff comes up. I'm sure these men just think, why is this woman staring at me, you know, so intensely? Because I sort of feel related to them in a way.
I actually went to my parents and said, I don't mean to dig up any skeletons if there are any, but are you sure you couldn't be the birth parent of a child from this, you know, same generation? And my mother was offended, and my father just laughed, and he's like, no, you'll upset your mother by just asking. But I asked, because you don't really know. She didn't know who she was related
I made
to.
him ask.
Yeah, it's like looking alike is speaking a foreign language.
Yeah.
But it's not a foreign language. It's what everybody speaks, what most people speak, except us.
I just believe that children can really handle the truth, no matter what. It's so much better than the not knowing. The not knowing just left me, you know, feeling like I was wandering around. I never felt a sense of connection as a child or as a teenager to anything. I felt like I was this sort of floating being.
I always felt like I was floating around, never grounded to anything.
I've always felt sort of that I'm different and I don't always belong.
I constantly keep people at arm's length. At least I'm aware of it, and I try not to.
I would think the biggest thing is being left alone or abandonment. Those are some of the biggest issues that I still carry with me today.
You know, a lot of the time adoption feelings are kept very quiet. You know, it's not something that I ever talked about because you're supposed, you know, what's wrong? You have a mother and father, hey, you're happy. But it has just been so liberating to talk about it and to have find out that other people have the same and then not to feel like I'm a bad person for having these feelings, for really understanding the complexities and seeing that all of us have had a loss, all of us. It wasn't just me. You know, both my mothers suffered loss too.
She's more complete, she's more solid, more confident. So by finding her birth parents, there was tremendous healing for her. So the more healing I've seen in her, the stronger she is, not only as a person, but as a mother and a wife.
But sometimes I pull away still from him. And like, I guess I had to find someone who wouldn't let me run. Because from everyone else, I would run and they would just say, okay, retreat, go. And he would just, like, when I would run into a corner, he would come into the corner with me and say, come out.
You used to not reveal everything about yourself
And now
initially.
I tell you everything, whether you want to hear it or not. I used to also keep my feelings to myself before Mike. With Mike, I got in touch with, you know, what's inside and that my feelings mattered. And I never thought they did until I met him.
I guess I just want to know who she is. I want to know the truth. I'm not really, and maybe it's because that's the way my family has always been. They've always been we're always very open. Whether things are positive or negative, we're always very open about them. We don't really hold back.
If I get a little shove, I know it's not. It's easier to understand where it's coming from, so it's easier to not react to it and get angry.
Because you know it's not about you.
It's not about me.
But I know one of your favorite things that you'll say to me is, I just love you, I just want to be with you, isn't that okay? And then I get very aware of what I'm doing, and I say, I'm sorry. It's almost like it's an automatic response that I'm not aware of, that it's like I can't even intercept it. It's so automatic. But the awareness comes, and then, the more aware I am, the more I'm able to stop.
Motherhood has been an incredibly healing gift for me. I now have 3 children. I don't find it easy still to feel connected, even though I'm the mother. I see their connection with my husband, but I don't always feel a part of that connection. Sometimes I feel I don't know how to do that.
The only thing that makes me sad in the whole thing is that acknowledgement of how many losses people had to experience, including myself, in order for the flip side to happen, for everybody to gain something. Everybody had to endure so much loss, and there was so much misinformation about it. Why was my mother told, if she just loved me enough, I would never ask? That's what she was told by all those people involved. For her protection, burn all the records. For her protection, it'll be fine. She'll never ask. You'll just love her enough and everything will be fine. And here I am, a born searcher, asking at every birthday party, every Christmas I'm thinking about it, every major holiday.
Somebody gave this baby up, at a very vulnerable time in its life. There's a sadness and an anger that comes along with that you can't escape from. So being able to make a nice, neat puzzle, having all the pieces fit, just makes it comfortable for other people. It may not be the truth.
Hey you, I hope that I see you someday. I am glad that I had the chance to say to you, I never forgot. It's like catching smoke, holding sand, water running through your hand. The days may fade, but the heart doesn't change, doesn't change. It doesn't change. It doesn't change. Oh, the heart, it doesn't change.
Decision was made for a child in 1968. 2 people, my biological mother, my adoptive parents. They did not think they were making decisions for these girls, and because they did. They made a decision for a baby, but that baby becomes a teenager becomes a man, and becomes an adult, becomes a husband, and becomes a father. So that decision in 1968 wasn't just for a baby. It was for an adult and a father. They have a right to their bloodline.
I don't regret ever finding out my story. I don't regret it, because no matter how challenging it's been, it has given me a sense of myself that I've never had before. Knowing where I came from gave me some sense of roots. And that's the physical feeling too, is that I feel more grounded into the earth. As I walk, I feel more grounded.
Secrets, you've been telling lies. It makes sense now to me how you live your life. Had so many till my heart nearly burst. I gave up secrets for what it's worth. And as we lay beneath her, the tallest angel smiling, I wanted to console her, make her see she needs a witness to carry her load, so those secrets won't explode and die. I'm not gonna run from you. I give you my word.